see the hurricane circling around, coming into land, and there was the Doc standing out in front of the dispersal tent, just as he should have been, waiting to see if anyone had been hurt. We walked towards him carrying the child, and Finn, who was a few yards in front, said, "Doc, you lazy old devil, here's a job for you." The Doc was young and kind and morose, except when he got drunk. When he got drunk, he sang very well. "Take her into the sick bay," he said. Peter and I carried her in and put her down on a chair. Then we left her and wandered over to the dispersal tent to see how the boys had got along. It was beginning to get dark. There was a sunset behind the ridge over in the west, and there was a full moon, a bomber's moon, climbing up into the sky. The moon shone upon the shoulders of the tents and made them white, small white pyramids standing up straight, clustering in little orderly groups around the edges of the aerodrome. They had a scared sheep look about them, the way they clustered themselves together. They had a human look about them, the way they stood up close to one another. And it seemed almost as though they knew that there was going to be trouble, as though someone had warned them that they might be forgotten and left behind. Even as I looked, I thought I saw them move. I thought I saw them huddle just a fraction nearer together. And then, silently, without a sound, the mountains crept a little closer into our valley. For the next 2 days there was much flying. There was the getting up at dawn, there was the flying, the fighting, and the sleeping, and there was the retreat of the army. And that was about all there was, or all there was time for. But on the third day the clouds dropped down over the mountains and slid into the valley, and it rained. So we sat around in the mess tent drinking beer and resinato, while the rain made a noise like a sewing machine on the roof. Then lunch. For the first time in days, the whole squadron was present. 15 pilots at a long table with benches on either side, and Monkey, the CO, sitting at the head. We were still in the middle of our fried corned beef when the flap of the tent opened and in came the Doc with an enormous dripping raincoat over his head, and with him, under the coat, was the little girl. She had a bandage around her head. The Doc said, "Hello, I brought a guest." We looked around and suddenly, automatically, we all stood up. The Doc was taking off his raincoat and the little girl was standing there with her hands hanging loose by her sides, looking at the men, and the men were all looking at her. With fair hair and pale skin, she looked less like a Greek than anyone I've ever seen. She was frightened by the 15 scruffy-looking foreigners who had suddenly stood up when she came in, and for a moment she half turned as if she were going to run away out into the rain. Monkey said, "Hello. Hello there. Come and sit down." "Talk Greek," said the doctor. "She doesn't understand." Finn and Peter and I looked at one another and Finn said, "Good God, it's our little girl. Nice work, Doc." She recognized Finn and walked around to where he was standing. He took her by the hand and sat her down on the bench, and everyone else sat down too. We gave her some fried corned beef and she ate it slowly, looking down at her plate while she ate. Monkey said, "Get Pericles." Pericles was the Greek interpreter attached to the squadron. He was a wonderful man we'd picked up at Yanina, where he'd been the local school teacher. He'd been out of work ever since the war started. "The children do not come to school," he said. "They are up in the mountains and fight. I cannot teach sums to the stones." Pericles came in. He was old, with a beard, a long pointed nose and sad grey eyes. You couldn't see his mouth, but his beard had a way of smiling when he talked. "Ask her name," said Monkey. He said something to her in Greek. She looked up and said, "Katina." That was all she said. "Look, Pericles," Peter said. "Ask her what she was doing sitting by that heap of ruins in the village." Finn said, "For God's sake, leave her alone." "Ask her, Pericles," said Peter. "What should I ask?" Pericles said, frowning. Peter said, "What was she doing sitting on that heap of stuff in the village when we found her?" Pericles sat down on the bench beside her, and he talked to her again. He spoke gently, and you could see that his beard was smiling.